Hello, very sorry about this. Yo, the technical problem or can somebody say if it has come or not? Okay, looks like okay. I'm going to carry on with this. I'm really extremely sorry for this. Uh, Memory. No one tells me the name of my village or the way that leads to my home. A few years ago, a bus used to go up country. People rushed inside, smelling of diesel and dirt, of men, women, goods, chickens in coops, and goats' farts, sweat, and tobacco. The bus took everything. The war has changed lives now. They have burned the bus. Children have given up school, and the past lives on only in pictures, in the memories of the people made silent by the burden of it. The door of my home now opens to broken windows, a shelled roof, silent bullet marks on the walls. Wildflowers have forced their way in through crumbled walls. My childhood spreads here and there, all about the house. The long afternoons I spent collecting one by one all that was lost in the name of home. Uh, Later on, I remember some of my friends whom I really used to discuss poetry. त्यसमा चाहिँ हाम्रो ईश्वर कणेल, I think so, he's in bOOkahOlics and he must be watching. So we used to meet behind Birendra campus, the Island Jungle Resort थियो त्यहाँ अहिले सायद अहिले पनि छ होला Island Jungle Resort. And we used to order a pot of coffee and a pen and a paper. अनि त्यसपछि we used to sit for hours without talking, just writing whatever we can, just recording whatever we can. So that was also a way of learning more about poetry. And the other thing is, I also used to, since I've spent a lot of time in Chitwan जाँदाखेरि देवघाटको त्यहाँनिर I used to spend quite lonely afternoons. त्यहाँ अगोरी बाबाको चाहिँ कुटी हुने गर्थ्यो देवघाटमा. त्यहाँनिर अगोरी बाबाको पर्टिकुलर चेयर थियो एउटा. I can still remember the texture, brown color, पानीले मक्केको. त्यस्तो थियो. त्यहाँबाट चाहिँ त्रिवेणी देखिन्थ्यो उता पारिपट्टिको काली खोला, काली रिभर आई थिङ्क, काली गण्डकी. त्यहाँ बसिन्थ्यो कोही बेला. अब जस्ट अन द नारायणीको किनारमा बस्यो, पढ्यो. अनि कोही बेला बाँदरले डिस्टर्ब गरेर आउँथ्यो. कोही बेला सडनली एउटा चाहिँ लास चाहिँ पपअप भइरहेको हुन्थ्यो अन द खोलामा. So those are quite interesting times. These lonely readings, I think so, it's quite important to discover yourself. Ani one particular incident I remember is opening of a library. Pachi Udayjiसँग भेट भयो. Uday Adhikari is quite a good facilitator even today. He inspires a lot of people. Udayji, म र भूपेन्द्र धिताल सर एयरपोर्टमा चाहिँ हामीले लाइब्रेरी खोल्यौँ एउटा सानो. They used to bring books from home. अनि साथीभाइहरूले चाहिँ डोनेट गर्ने, हामीले पनि. अनि त्यसपछि we just bought it, we opened the library. अनि त्यसपछि मान्छेहरू आउँथे, पढ्थे, जान्थे. We just felt happy. त्यो एउटा किसिमको त्यो there was no like a vested interest, and it was just sheer happiness. And we ran that library for some time. It was near Bharatpur airport. I remember that. That's also your literary journey, important point I must mention. त्यसै गरी अब I'll read one poem. Your poem, हाम्रो Saguna's grandfather, I think so, she must have posted this on her Facebook. ग्रान्डफादरको पेन्टिङ एक दिन पोस्ट हुँदाखेरि चाहिँ मैले त्यो त्यहाँ इन्सपायर भएर फेरि अनि चितवनको लोकेसनसँग ब्लेन्ड गरेको छु. आई थिङ्क सो यु क्यान नो द्याट दिस पोएम वन द युनेस्को हेरिटेज अवार्ड इन 2014. So it's called Grandfather. Grandfather, I look at your portrait today, at your white coat browned with dust, years of hardness lurking on the folds of skin, gathering on your forehead. On a clear spring day you died. The bougainvillea had climbed up right next to my window, with its bright pink flowers, its roots spread on the porch, grasping every inch of the earth it could hold. It's already 20 years since you left. I'm married and divorced, and I have 2 sons. But it is a name I carry like a medallion. Next to your portrait hangs a painting on a nail. A moonlit night. A swan is swimming on a still lake. It must have been autumn then. The dark shadows beside the trees must mean an evening somewhere. And the first-person light must be the light coming in from an open field. Perhaps an evening in Chitwan, where the sun stays on the hills until late. On a dry summer night, the moonlight reaches as far as the Mahabharata hills. When paddies ripen, wild elephants cross the river and graze in the fields all night. The villagers bring out last year's firecrackers, and when all that fails, beat on tins and drums to scare them away. And some of the friends whom I used to discuss poetry is Mukul Dahal, who's a neighbor who's close by me. Mukul sir used to be a principal in SOS Balgram. So we used to meet at the on a holiday. Like I used to go at the back. त्यहाँ क्वार्टर थियो उहाँको अनि त्यहाँ पछाडि बाइक राखेर हामी चाहिँ we used to talk for hours. अनि अर्को राजेन्द्र आचार्य भाइ, also I can remember. UK आइसक्दाखेरि when I came, I just came with a sheer thinking that I wanted to learn the craft of writing. That was the only reason for coming to the UK. म एउटा क्राफ्ट सिकौँ, एउटा कसरी लेख्दो रहेछन् अथवा त्यो पर्टिकुलर युनाइटेड किङडममै, किनभने यहाँ यो एक किसिमको चाहिँ राइटर्सहरू पोइट्सहरूको एक किसिमको एउटा चाहिँ तीर्थस्थल जस्तो पनि हो. युनिभर्सिटीमा जाँदा आई रोट अ लट अफ पोएट्री ड्युरिङ दोज टाइम्स. तर आई वाज गेटिङ रिजेक्सन्स वान आफ्टर द अदर. पठाएर रिजेक्ट, I'm sorry Mr. Chhetri, your poem hasn't been accepted. I'm sorry Mr. Chhetri, but it kept on piling. And I was quite angry at first, like, maybe they don't understand my the way I'm writing Bhante, अथवा maybe it's a it's Eastern type of thing that we want to relay and they don't understand Bhante. But later on I came to know that it's nothing of that. Language can be honed and craft can be polished. So with that, म यो टाइम पनि कति भयो. I'm reading this Tsunami. Tsunami was published in Tower Journal US. अनि त्यति बेला जापानमा सुनामी गएको बेलामा लेखेको यो मैले पोएम. That day the sun was bright like the summer sun. The wind had blown just enough to fly kites. But there was no kite today. Father was drying the old fish net, checking for cuts from where the fish might slip. Inside the kitchen, the kettle was blowing steam, hissing with my father's tea. He had just changed the bulb in his storeroom that had blackened with dust. The paper boy had thrown the paper near the door. Nobody had read it yet. I could see my father's boat from my room. It made small movements on the place where it was moored. Suddenly, the room under my feet trembled. Things started to fall. Walls crumbled. My brother's bicycle banged on the wall. Father was shouting. I forgot what he said. The house shook. There was silence. Later, I watched from my window how the ocean had rolled right up to the sky and was heading towards my home. That day, we did not go to the sea. The sea came to us. So, one strange experience in United Kingdom at that time when I came was uh, साउथ इस्ट एसियाबाट जो पनि आउने स्पेसली नेपाल इन्डियाबाट प्रायः कि मेडिसिन पढेको हुने कि चाहिँ एकाउन्ट पढेको हुने अनि त्यसपछि पिपल युज टु आस्क हाउ कम यु कम फर आर्ट्स आई मिन इट्स क्वाइट अनयुजल अनि दे युज टु से द ओ यु आर ब्रेक भनेर मैले भन्न खोजेको इट वाज क्वाइट अनएक्सपेक्टेड अहिले त एकदमै क्वाइट कमन छ होइन इङ्ग्लिस लिट्रेचर पढ्नको लागि तर त्यति बेला इट वाज क्वाइट अनएक्सपेक्टेड poetry, I think, or any creative form of expression is not only a hobby or interest. कसैको लागि यो life saver पनि हुन्छ. I can remember a friend called Hele Green भन्ने चाहिँ she was into depression, she was suicidal, अनि त्यसपछि उसले चाहिँ एउटा चाहिँ अहिले युकेमा पनि she has opened a charity that deals with all this. And when you, I haven't read thoroughly, but usko life padda चाहिँ कस्तो भने poetry saved her. She writes that poetry saved her. So के भन्न खोजे भने यसले चाहिँ हिल गर्छ मलाई लाग्छ यसले सेभ गर्छ पोइट्री इज अ लाइफ सेभर अल्सो हामीले त्यो पनि फर्ममा लेख्न हामी सक्छौँ अनि युनाइटेड किङडममा हामीले चाहिँ यहाँनिर सिटीमा चाहिँ एउटा यहाँको फर्स्ट थिङ वाट आई डिड वाज यहाँको पोइटहरू चिन्नु पऱ्यो लोकल पोइट्सहरू त्यहाँ हामी भेटेर एभ्री विक सन्डेको दिन हामीले भेट्ने गर्थ्यौँ सेन्ट्रल लाइब्रेरीमा त्यसपछि गएर एन्ड आई वाज क्वाइट न्यू एट द्याट टाइम अनि वान थिङ वाज क्वाइट इन्ट्रेस्टिङ इज मैले जे बोले पनि त्यो नेपाल बोले जस्तो हुन्थ्यो कि त्यो बाहिर जाँदाखेरि माइनोरिटीमा बस्दाखेरि त्यो एउटा चाहिँ भेरी पावरफुल एन्ड स्ट्रेन्ज एक्सप्रेस फिलिङ चाहिँ त्यो पनि हुँदो रहेछ र त्यो रियालिटी पनि के वेन एभर यु स्पिक समथिङ वाट एभर इट्स लाइक यु आर स्पिकिङ अन बिहाफ अफ ए कन्ट्री त्यही भएर मैले एक किसिमको आई फेल्ट एज इफ आई वाज रिप्रेजेन्टिङ नेपाल एट द टाइम एन्ड स्योरली आई डिड सो वी युज टु मिट एभ्री विक एन्ड त्यसपछि सबैले पोएट्री पालो पढ्ने अनि त्यसपछि वी युज टु प्रोभाइड फिडब्याक very constructive feedback and that also helped a lot. Rejection को कुरा गर्दाखेरि मैले अघि भनिरहेको थिएँ त्यहाँनिर the more अब मलाई लाग्छ अहिले rejection it's just a part of growth. If you don't get rejected, I don't think so you are into the right direction. किनभने कुनै पनि पोइट्री सबमिट गर्दाखेरि हामीले जर्नल्सहरू हुन्छ जस्तो अब इफ यु गो थ्रु टप जर्नल्सहरूमा ग्रान्टा न्युयोर्कर प्यारिस रिभ्यू यिनीहरू हुन् आई मिन त्यसपछि आउँछ अब अरू छ जस्तो म्याग्ना भयो गटर भयो अनि त्यसपछि कन्ट्री वाइज जर्नल्सहरू हुन्छ होइन अब द फर्स्ट थिङ इज यु सबमिट अनि त्यसपछि even if you get rejected, I think so you shouldn't be disheartened. I can remember T.S. Eliot's Westland, the version that you see today. मलाई लाग्छ it more than 50-60 drafts चाहिँ त्यसको चाहिँ पलिस भएको हुनुपर्छ बिफोर त्यो वेस्टल्यान्ड अहिले जुन छ त्यो बन्यो त्यस्तै गरी अब द सेम विथ अब जेके रावलिङको ह्यारी पोटर भनौँ इट वाज रिजेक्टेड सेभरल टाइम्स लर्ड अफ द फ्लाइज हो त्यो भयो So, मैले I'll read a new poetry which I wrote last year. Your poem चाहिँ it was shortlisted for the Vancouver Tagore Society Canada and पछि यसले सेकेन्ड प्राइज पायो. सो इट्स पेपर बोट छोराको लागि, मेरो 6 वर्षको छोरा छ, छोराको लागि चाहिँ त्यो कागजको चाहिँ नौका चाहिँ बनाएको थिएँ एक दिन. अनि त्यसलाई चाहिँ त्यो बोट भन्दाखेरि त्यसैबाट इन्स्पायर भएर लेख्यो पेपर बोट. Finally the boat is made, a white paper one, for my 5-year-old son. A dot of red ink in the front is the focus glass light. A sail has been attached to its deck, made of a matchstick and a blue ribbon. The bathtub hasn't filled up. It's 1 inch deep as I put my fingers in. My son stands there as we launch the boat into the tub. It makes small movements on the skin of water. But more than anything, I watch my son, whose eyes are fixed on the boat, and whose heart is filled with joy, with the cargo of happiness it has brought. So that was a... And mostly, I used to spend time in cafe, library, over a cup of coffee and write over the years. And okay, I'll read one more. Balloonwala Fed Journal UK मा छापेको थियो यो. So the Balloonwala. I remember the old man who used to sell balloons when we were small. He had a spiked bamboo stick with colorful balloons festooned all over it. Red, blue, orange and white. The men put mustard seeds inside it. It rattled while we played. He blew it till his moustache quivered and the lines on his forehead straightened. Sweat beads gathered at the tip of his nose. He tied a drawstring at the end and displayed it for sale. He wore no slippers and smelt like fish. He had long, calloused feet. He entered the village with a small drum. Later, the Balloonwala came on a bicycle. Its tires crackled on the gravelled road, raising dust, while we ran behind our half-naked bodies, tanned mahogany by the August sun. Our clothes fluttered along as we raced, tearing the wind. He had an iron canister fitted to it. We bought the balloons, attached a letter, or sometimes a small message, and left it to fly on its own. I wrote many letters to my father, who died in the Civil War. The Balloonwala used to tell me, pointing towards the sky, the dead lived there, in the form of stars. The balloons wafted up till they could be seen no more, even as we kept our eyes fixed on them. So I think poetry, there's some good books which I would like to share, which has really helped me. One of my favorite poets is Ted Kooser. So if you can see this Poetry Home Repair Manual, it has been quite a wonderful read. And if you are into prose, I think The Art of Fiction, The Element of Style, I think these are like the Bible of creative writing, and I think you should give it a try. And the other way, what I used to do about while editing poem is I used to read aloud. When you read aloud, what happens is the words that come out her mouth, it creates some sort of a stir in the atmosphere. It gives that particular punch, needed punch, or it acts with gravity, or it creates that synergy, like. So I think it's better to read it aloud so that it comes back inside a conscience, and it observes within you. So reading aloud is also a very good way to practice poetry. Mm. So I'm reading this. It's called The Night Bus. I think so. We all have gone on a night bus. I mean, Kathmandu-dekhi Chitwan-dekhi Kankarivita. I've made various trips, especially during summer months. The window used to open. So the night bus. As I sit in my study, stuck with a half-written poem, Joni the carpenter is humming a song. It's unclear, except for the you that stands out above the crooning. It reminds me of a song I once heard on a night bus to Kakarabita. An April night, a half moon, hewn clear in a cloudless sky, almost like a lantern. The gangway was stuffed with sacks of rice and people with sleepy eyes. I had a window view, the tinted glass pane opened wide, and as the bus moved forward into the night, I rested my head on the back of the seat, felt the wind lift the roots of my hair, listened to the song, and watched the moon follow our bus all night. त्यो चन्द्रमा मुन चाहिँ त्यो जहाँ जहाँ बस गयो त्यहीँ फलो गरे हो कि जस्तो लाग्थ्यो त्यति बेला नाइट बसमा हिँड्दाखेरि. I don't know how long still I have got time. एउटा सानो न्यू पोएम मैले मेरो आफ्नो एक्सपिरियन्सको बारेमा लेख्दैछु. मेरो बाबाको चाहिँ एउटा बुवाको चाहिँ घडी थियो सिको 5. सो त्यो घडी एक दिन चाहिँ यसो भेटेँ त्यो सफा गर्दाखेरि. My father's watch. I found a watch today while clearing the shed. A dark grey Seiko 5 with an hour's hand stuck at 2 o'clock. Just beside the old paint can, brown with rust, your name deciphered on the still band A.B. Chhetri. A thick layer of fluff has settled on it. I remained still, looked at the dial, remembering you, how you have gone timeless without it for 30 long years. अर्को यो one of the most crucial and a very substantial factor in my creative journey has been exercise. मैले एक्सर्साइजलाई चाहिँ I compare it to meditation. यो एक्सर्साइजले चाहिँ गरिसक्दाखेरि I think it keeps you calm, and whatever negatives you've got, it helps to set that. There were exercise of creative writing kuni I found a very quite good balance, and it has helped me a lot. The other thing is writing residency ma pani if you can apply for writing residency. मेरो last year France ma चाहिँ तपाईको त्यो writing residency हो. The nearest shop was nearly 6 miles drive. You have to go 6 miles. It was quite a very remote location. र यस्तै यस्तै लोकेसनहरुमा when you completely detach yourself from the outer world, I mean not every day but once in a while, yearly 3-4 times, when you completely cut off, I think so that also can be a very fertile period for you to write. मैले यो म्यासेजहरू पढेको छैन म म्यासेज कि कता छ त्यो ओके म्यासेज के छ नमस्कार हरिशजी Anjana birthday so much similar to my childhood. Thank you, Saguna Sa, knowing for so many years. Thank you very much, Saguna. I mean, Amit Dungana. Thank you, Prao, Navraj Bhai. It's wonderful. Anup Dada, Suman Gimire, Maya Thakuri. So thanks for watching. It's wonderful to have your support. And if there's anything, I'll be happy to share. You waiting for my father, यो नयाँ पोएम हो मैले लेखेको यो अगेन बाबाको बारेमा यो दार्जिलिङमा जाँदाखेरि कसरी यहाँबाट चाहिँ बिहान लगभग 4 बजे हाम्रो घरमा चाहिँ अब म होस्टेल पुर्याउने भनेपछि आमाले चाहिँ कुराउनी बनाउनुहुन्थ्यो सो सी युज टु बी बिजी राइट फ्रम द मर्निङ कुराउनी बनाउनुहुन्थ्यो अनि बुवाले त्यो के भन्छ स्टिल ट्याङ्क ल्याएर चाहिँ त्यहाँभित्र लुगाहरू अब किनभने अब 8-9 महिनाको लागि चाहिँ जानु पर्थ्यो अनि त्यसपछि हामी त्यति बेला 4 बजे 5 बजे बिहान चितवनबाट काँकरभित्रको लागि लाग्थ्यौँ त्यति बेला सिलिगुडीदेखि अलि माथि मैले आम जस्ट कटिङ सर्ट सिलिगुडीदेखि चाहिँ बसमा चढेर हामी जान्थ्यौँ प्रायः बुवा साइडमा हुनुहुन्थ्यो सो वेटिङ फर माई फादर I sat beside you when we went to Darjeeling. I must have been 9 then. I would sit by the glass window and watch the landscape shift on the tinted glass pane. At Kurseong, the bus would stop. The old train station would show up through a haze of mist. The smell of burnt coal would warm my nostrils. You would get off to buy something. My eyes would follow you through the crowd. And as soon as you disappeared, my heart would skip a bit. And when you would reappear again, life would return. The driver would come. He would roar the accelerator on and off. A column of black smoke would rush out. And when he blew the horn, my eyes searched from one face to the other until I would see you, running with a packet of biscuit in one hand and a bottle of water on the next. On the way uphill, I would vomit. You'd wipe my mouth with a handkerchief, give me water and an Avomine tablet. I would rest on a shoulder and sleep. 30 years have passed by. I am going to hills of Darjeeling again. I sit by the window. A stranger rests next to me. The wind moans through the glass chink. At Kurseong, the bus slows down to a slow throttle beside the same train station. It hisses and comes to a halt. I do not want to go out, and it feels like nothing had changed. The rush, the smell of coal, and the faces of the people. The driver comes back, pushes the accelerator, blows the horn. I look at the crowd. The mist curls up lazily, cover the town. I feel like I'm waiting for you again. I think in poetry, the strong poetry will capture all your senses. हाम्रो यो 5वटा सेन्सेसहरू छ it will capture all those so I think if you write along those lines it will help if you see that मैले जस्तो how does a poetry taste does it taste salty or does it have a greater sand or You know, like how does it feel when you touch? So त्यो अलिकति त्यसरी 5 senses लाई चाहिँ इन्भल्भ गऱ्यो भने राइट आई थिङ्क सो यु क्यान write good poems. I don't know. Could you somebody tell the time? I'm not sure what time it is, and whether I still have some minutes left. Now, this is a type of a poem. It's called The Pain. It's a new poem. Dear, so many years have passed by, and even now, when the wind blows and brings the smell of summer in my backyard garden, I think of you. I imagine you to be happy, but still wish you had lived near me. More than half of our life we have spent apart. And they say, you now live in a quiet town near the sea. On a free day, I'll still sleep. Think of the salt in your lips, the warm embrace, the spa. The years go by so quickly here, the days, and I've learned to settle down with your absence. The pain in my heart is quite small now, but I want to live with this pain all my life. So that was a new love poem, quite fictional in nature, I think. Now, one day I think Saguna posted this again in about Maleku. There was a Maleku Macha. That's quite famous amongst all Nepalese. To Macha Sukairako photo, and that prompted me to write. And I think so. Hamro Elvi Daju and Prao, they know this poem. Maleku. The fish are dried in the sun, skewered to their bones with a bamboo stick, the stiff bend of their bodies almost poised as if to swim. But there is no more swimming in the river now, after the fisherman's net, the hard kiss of death on the head, the slithering and the twisting on the mud, the last dance before the dying, and the flesh crucified. Nearby, a woman is heating mustard oil on a black weathered frying pan, almost ready to put the fish inside for the last swim. I'll read a few of your comments hello Amit Dungana ji, and Mukul Mitra, so wonderful to watch you. Anjana Vaidya, thanks. Amir Bhai, wonderful to have you here. Raman Paneruji, it's good to connect. And Deepan Shrestha, I think he's my student, Deepan, if you are. So it's wonderful, everyone. Again, I'll read this poem about my grandmother. Grandmother was very substantial to me, and she passed away when I was quite young, but still I can remember. Grandmother. Early morning, my grandmother would be cooking. I used to crawl by her side, pull the pleat of her gown and cry. She always lifted me up on her arm and carried me to my cot and covered me with a blanket as I pretended to sleep. Though I was a child, I was old enough to read her face. The clear lines of her skin, the hollow of her cheeks, the little island of her smile. After many years, as I see her again, her hair grayed, her bespectacled eyes, I remember that day, So much has changed since then, but what has not changed is her smile. Even today, when she smiles, the years she carries on her skin gather into a dance of little folds, circles, and curves. So, I'm sorry, maybe this was written for another grandmother. I mean, not my own. So, uh, I've got prose. I was in a confused whether to share a uh, extract of a novel or not, Vanera. But I asked our patron, and she says it's okay to share. So, uh, uh, Mohit Joshi ji, thank you very much, Mohit Joshi ji. I don't know you personally, but I think so you're doing a fabulous job there in promoting bOOkahOlics. Oh, Amit Dungana, Amit KC, it's wonderful to meet you. And Gopi Sapkota ji, welcome. Uh, Maya Thakuri ji, it's good to see you joining over here. Uh, can I ask if I have 15 minutes? I think so it will take like 10 minutes or so. Mohit Joshi ji, if you can tell me if I have time or not to read my prose. Okay, I'll just go through it. यो चाहिँ मेरो अपकमिङ नोभलको एक्सट्र्याक्ट हो यो जस्ट टु टेल अबाउट अ लिटल थिङ्स यसको यो नोभल इन प्रोग्रेसले लास्ट इयर राइटर्स एन्ड आर्टिस्ट राइटर्स एन्ड आर्टिस्ट वर्किङ क्लास राइटर्स प्राइजमा चाहिँ फर्स्ट रनर अप भएको थियो and that was hosted by Bloomsbury, UK. So, Mohit Joshi, it's fine. Okay, thank you, Mohit ji. So, in that case, I'll read this. यो जुटपानी खगेरी भन्ने साथीहरू अब चितवनको छ, but it's quite fictional. Okay, I mean it doesn't. I don't think so. You'll find anything common with today's Jutpani. So, with your kind permission, I'm going to read. Chapter 1, Jutpani, the Old Village. I remember our Santi dwelling across the Khageri, the river whose source was somewhere up in the Mahabharata hills, cut its course, gathering strong currents as it cascaded downhill until it slowed and level on the plains. It further stretched its watercourse through a dense rainforest inhabited by rhinos, Bengal tigers, bears, and snakes like carrot and cobra. The river was infested with crocodiles, and in summer months, when the heat was at its peak, these ancient creatures crawled their way up through the sand and got as far as our village, looking for chickens and other small prey. My old village Jutpani was situated along the bank of this river. My parents migrated there during the 60s. None of my children that my mother bore survived the black water fever until I was born on the evening of 24th August 1970. An emaciated child, I was saved by the roots and potions brewed by the local witch doctors. The village was stricken with malaria, and people died like flies during those years. Migrants from the hills and neighboring India came and cleared hundreds of acres of sal forest to settle there. The earliest memory I have of my village is of the heat and a damp hut in the middle of the forest where several other huts were erected. The smell of mossy wood and smoke coming out of the hay roofs linger in my nostrils even today. My father worked as a teacher in the only makeshift schoolhouse made of wooden stilts, sal leaves, and red mud. The children and adults alike came there with a cushion woven out of jute sacks to sit on the ground with, and a black painted stone boat to ride on. The Kagari River was the lifeline of our village. It gave us fish and water to drink. It also helped the villagers to transport logs to India across the watercourse, where piles of them were sent floating, tied to a makeshift raft, and intercepted at various points till their final destination on the Indian side. It would then be sold for furniture and firewood. The vendors built temporary shacks on the banks and stayed there for weeks during the log cutting season. They killed deer, rabbits, pigeons, and sometimes even monkeys with catapults and arrows dipped in poison made from wild plants. They salted the meat and dried it in the sun. During the night, they lit the watercourse with oil torches until all the rafts safely passed away. The men drank thurra, and the sound of their laughter echoed through the trees all night. Each year during the monsoon, the river swelled with sinews of strong undercurrents. The fate of the riverbank changed as the waves ate away chunks of soil and etched a new course. The water would rush across the forest floor and flood our houses. The dampness brought in snakes, leeches, and scorpions. Many of the huts along the bank fell into the water and disappeared. The river swallowed everything. The monsoon also took away villagers who drowned while crossing the river. When the men could not return home in the evening due to the currents, they lit a signal fire on the other side. In the daylight, the water was mud-brown and restless. The villagers gathered along in the bank early morning, regardless of the weather, to fill their mud pots sealed with a cloth. In late evenings, the village kids would gather in the middle of the road with bamboo stabs and catapults, waiting to strike the bats retreating from the jungle, chasing the light of dusk. They looked like little black nebulae floating across the summer sky. When they approached, the wheezing sound of sick lungs rang in our ears. One hard strike sent the bats spiraling down, their leathery wings beating heavily on their rat-like bodies. I loved the sound of their flapping wings as they flopped on the ground, in the gutter, on the paddy fields, along the road, or fell into the shrubs, the bushes trembling with their startle. The electricity grid hadn't entered our village. The only source of light during the night was the moon or the kerosene lantern. In the morning, our nostrils were sometimes lined with black shoots from the lamps. My father was a short man with a stubborn will and a bad temper. He must have been in his late 20s then. Despite his young age, one could already see the years of hardness lurking in the folds of skin wrinkling on his forehead. The village was cut off from the outside world by a dense forest. The only path was through the jungle, often infested with leeches and feared for its rhinos and wild elephants. People with long sickles tied to wooden poles cleared many acres of land. The clearing in the middle of the jungle had water holes for wild buffaloes. The bank of the Kagari River was where the village children played during summer, despite the fear of crocodiles. Naked and tanned alive by the sun, we dived into the river from morning till dusk. We shot birds with catapults, particularly the green parrots and starlings that flew above the village sky in noisy murmuration. The birds after a while became clever and immediately changed their course and darted off, cutting through the wind just as we took out our catapults. Our home was a thatched hut made of straw and bamboo and plastered with daub of red mud. The beds were made of bamboo twigs fastened with strands of jute ropes. Our small uneven yard swept and cleaned by my mother every morning gave off a fresh smell of cow dung. She prayed at the tulasi plant in the middle of the courtyard every morning facing the sun. She was a class 8 graduate from a Bengali school in northern India. The villagers regarded the teachers as some kind of gods. They brought rice, lentils, vegetables, ghee, and meet to a hut once in a while. The majority of the villagers did not know how to write their names. They used their thumbprint as a signature. The blackboard was made of rough wooden planks painted with a paste of black soot scraped from cooking pots. Pieces of limestone broken from bigger chunks were used as a chalk. There were no toilets, and they went to the forest early in the morning to defecate. Father shared the importance of sanitation with the villagers, and thus the first functioning toilet in the village was built. The others emulated this later. During the first year of their settlement, villagers were easy prey to wild elephants, rhinos, tigers, and snakes. A vigilante group was set up to patrol the village during the night. They roamed around with live firebrands doused in kerosene, shouting "Jage Raho" at various intervals, reassuring the villagers. During summer, the simmering heat waves baked the land dry. All the mud pools in the village were soaked up by the sun. The land dried up like a parched throat, and fissures opened up in the fields like wounds and skin. The river shrunk to lay bare a skeleton of scabby white stones, and at midday these stones burned our souls if we stepped on them with our naked feet. Parts of the river bed exposed an island of bright sand beds. My mother said, scratching the hard-baked earth with a kodalo, "The earth is mother." Both my parents shrunk like scarecrows working in the heat and dust. My mother's heels cracked, and it took many days and sometimes months to heal. She applied a paste of silajit and turmeric that she had traded with the nomads who came down from the mountains every winter with sacks of herbs on their backs. They would sprawl all their goods in the courtyard, plants, dried herbs, and stones we had never seen before, jimbu, birenun, and yasagumba. One day I heard that my grandmother was coming to stay with us. I couldn't sleep for a few days out of excitement. We only knew that she lived with her brother in India. My father was her only son, and when her own brother died, there was nowhere for her to go. The east-west highway from Mechi to Mahakali that links the two ends of Nepal had not been built at the time, and people had to rely on Indian routes. My grandmother came on a steam train to Raxol, the border town between India and Nepal. Father went there to receive her. She, it turned out, was a witch doctor, and she soon won the hearts of the villagers with her miraculous ability to heal. They started frequenting a hut with their sick. Her practice was not only limited to human beings, but cattle too. The villagers brought sick cows, buffaloes, and goats. When the animals did not give enough milk, or if the hen did not lay eggs, she was immediately called. She felt the pulse of the patients and determined what the problem was. Father despised the profession as it was noisy. As part of the ritual, she had to beat the dhangro, a handheld drum, throughout the healing process. It made a lot of noise which annoyed my father. One day he took the dhangro and soaked it in the shit pit attached to the communal latrine. Grandmother did not speak to him for many days. These were the earliest memories passed on to me by my father. I grew up listening to the strange tales of mountains and countries we had never been. Later, my grandmother had a strong influence. She was a vegetarian and was fond of breeding goats. It supplied her with regular household income. She sold goats mostly during the festival when the price was at its peak. When I asked her why she sold the goats, which were then killed if she was a vegetarian, she replied, "I raise them. Once they are out of my pen, I try not to think of them." Father was an obsessive carnivore. He would eat a whole goat on his own. Once when my grandmother had gone to a cousin's house to stay overnight, my father invited his friends. He chose one of the fattest goats from the pen for the slaughter. They buried the innards and pelt in a mud pit dug at the end of our field. Next day, my grandmother noticed that a goat was missing. It did not take long for her to realize that my father and his friends had devoured the entire goat overnight. The spoils were later dug out by a stray dog as further evidence. In my 7th year, my father got a job at a bigger school in Bojar. It was a newly developed village towards the other side of the forest. He bought a new Chinese bicycle of Phoenix brand and installed a small seat adjacent to the handlebar for me. On our way to school, the tire billowed a cloud of dust as it moved along the gravel road. I thumbed the round bell all the way, my face telescoped on its curved steel covering. During the festival of Dasai, father took me to the market. It was the only time I got new clothes. I had no choice in that matter. Father picked the clothes, ordered the tailor to take my measurements, and that was final. The happiness of wearing new clothes compensated for my lack of choice in the matter. I loved the smell of new clothes and took turns sniffing the mysterious scent that lingered on the fabric. Father would then take me to his friend's studio to have a photograph taken. When I was in the 5th class, my grandmother decided to perform her kriya, the funeral rites, while she was still alive. She did not want to pass the burden of the funeral to her son. The entire family went to Devghat. We had to cross the river Narayani in a wooden boat. On the other side, at the sand bank, the barber shaved her head. She took a dip in the river. Incense sticks were lit, and a pundit recited the sermons. I couldn't look at her in the face after that. The grandmother I had known was lost forever. After the ceremony, she was nothing more than a bald nun for me. She was going off to live in Devghat after that. Father arranged a small hut for her on the bank of the river. She lived there for the rest of her lives. One day we heard that grandmother had taken river Samadhi. She had walked straight into the depths of the Kali River, merging into the dark waters until she could be swept away quietly. Thank you, friends, for bearing with me. That was quite long, I think. I just have a look at the Suraj Karkiji. Thank you. Uttam Paudelji, thank you. Uday Adhikari, you're a big influence to everyone. You inspire. And just see from the first. Basanta Parajuliji, good to connect with you. And Minraj Basantaji, good to connect with you as well. Thank you very much, Anjanaji. And T.N. Bhatta, thank you very much. LB Daju, thank you. Suraj Rajkarki, Umesh Acharya, thank you very much. Okay. I couldn't get the time. If anybody could tell that if there's a... because I'm just going to... before, I would like to... Mohitji, could you please tell me, like, I haven't checked the time. Could you tell me, like, if it is too much, or do you still have a few more minutes so that I can wrap up? Thank you. So I would like to thank everyone today. This is a wonderful opportunity to connect with all of you, all my families, friends, my well-wishers, my students, my gurus, my mentors, my critics, for being and bearing with me today. And I want to thank the bOOkahOlics team for providing me this opportunity to connect with all of you. Saguna has been a wonderful patron to create all this, the woman behind this network. I think it's a wonderful network, and all the friends of bOOkahOlics who have worked hard to make this happen. 54 minutes, okay. Okay, Goopy Sakura says 54 minutes. Okay. Okay, let me see what I can read. Okay, I'll read from my book over here. I had a friend in Nepal who passed away when I was over here, and I remember him. So at that time when he passed away, I wrote this thinking of him. Death of an old friend. Surendra, you used to give me boiled eggs with ground black salt cupped in your palm and pieces of honeycomb drooling with honey. And we played hide and seek in the maize bush at the back of our hostel. I would always find you crouching behind a row of trembling leaves, or up on the branch of a neem tree, your breath taut behind your closed lips. In the end, our teacher used to call us back. Now I hear that you have gone hiding again. It's almost winter now. The clouds will soon turn and fall down over the hills and lakes. I am beginning to worry. I give up, my friend. Won't you sew up now? So, I'll read my poem Emptiness. It was published in SN Review, US. There is emptiness, my uncle says, in the house where he lives. It grows in darkness, feeding on silence. Dreams of strange places come home every night. Not only the house, the room where he sleeps breathes loneliness. The window looks at an open field like a solitary monk. And then the heart, a whole train of memories, looking out of the rusty window grills, left behind on a ghost station. It is all there, right there, where it aches the most. I'll see a few questions if I have, then okay. Thanks everyone. I think it was wonderful to have you all in this live session, and once again a huge thanks to bOOkahOlics. And as I believe that when you write something, or to come to this stage, it's not only I'll have to thank all the people who have shaped me from different from different angles, like friends, families, and all who have been instrumental for this. And once again, thanks bOOkahOlics for having me here. Thanks all my friends. It was wonderful. So I think I'll just got this.